a colleague, there isn't a lot that I can add to what has been said here today, other than to, first of all, I share the outrage and horror of all right-thinking people at the latest outbreak of terror in Gaza and its consequences for the most vulnerable people. Nobody can be in any doubt that the Palestinian people in Gaza are in the grip of a terrorist group, Hamas, whose mutilation, murder and hostage-taking is unconscionable and must be part of every conversation about what ought to happen, what should happen, what can happen into the future. Just as clearly, how Israel responds to such provocations can never escape scrutiny, because we have to engage with the reality that the existence of the people in Gaza and in the occupied territories is a very cruel one indeed. And while I think we must always unequivocally accept the right of the Israeli people to defend themselves and support them in that, no state can ever go unchallenged on the question of whether it is engaging with the long-established principles governing whether a war is just and how a war, when there has to be war, can be prosecuted justly. They are long-established principles, not just in the Judeo-Christian tradition, but going back to the ancient Greeks, which it's never a luxury to reflect on. Things like proportionality, things like the ability of the response to deal with the threat, and many other considerations that have to be grappled with in international fora. As a small country, Ireland can feel very powerless. We're part of a wider European Union response mostly, although in these days I think it is fair to say that Ireland's voice, and maybe Ireland's distinctive voice, is being heard to some degree on this issue. While I'm not always sure about whether it's appropriate for our President to speak in a given context, I think he was at least partially right in some of the sentiments that he expressed recently.
President, whether for him or against him, they have to be very cautious.
I'm always cautious, and I'm not in any way holding him to account.
Thank you.
But I want to conclude on a practical point, and it may seem like a very small effort, but one of the things that I think has been very good about our response to the refugee crisis in recent years has been community sponsorship, which has enabled communities to operate together to bring Afghani refugees, for example, the families of judges and women judges, to safety with their families in our country. And I understand that this is also operated, in fact I know that this is operated in the case of Syrian refugees as well. As it happens, I know of one community that is in a position to bring to safety a family trapped in the south of Gaza, a family who would not be a security threat to our state, and I think it is very legitimate to always consider that dimension of issues too, but who do want to help. And I would like to ask the Minister, and maybe I ought to know if it's already a possibility, but is there a possibility of operating something along the community sponsorship model to bring people in Gaza to safety, where it is possible for them to get out, where they are appropriate people to assist, namely innocent civilians, and where there is a realistic community possibility in Ireland to bring such families to safety. Is that already possible? Is this something that the government will consider now in the light of the unique circumstances that prevail in Gaza? Because right now, people are in immediate danger of their lives. Whether you call it collateral damage or whether you call it unjust collective punishment or the unwitting endangerment of innocent civilians, doesn't matter to the people who might be most vulnerable. So is it possible to look at that, whether that could operate in the light of the current circumstances, as I said, where it's possible for them to get out and where it's possible to be processed in an acceptable way? Because no matter what happens in the coming weeks, life in Gaza is not something that can be compared with normal living, as we all know. So I'd be very grateful if that's a response you can give me either now, Minister, or if I can engage with you This question is a question I should have been asking anyway, but it is coming on the back of a particular inquiry that I've received and that I want to help with. Gurmil Magan.